Hello and welcome. My name is Shauna Brown. I'm a manager in faculty affairs here at UAGC and host for this session, The Evolution of the Academic Project Management Process. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you'd like to use it, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Bryan Aylward and Dr. Joe Cappa.
Great, thank you. I guess we'll introduce ourselves really quickly. Thanks for coming today. I'm Dr. Bryan Aylward. I am the Associate Vice President over the Office of Academic Innovation, Operations, and Technology, and joined here with Dr. Joe Cappa. Want to introduce yourself, Joe?
Yeah, so Dr. Bryan Aylward is my boss, and I am the project manager slash academic ops manager for the Office of Academic Innovation, Operations, and Technology. So we wanted to do a couple things here in this presentation. We wanted to talk a little bit from the industry, higher education industry perspective, but really the three focus areas are where we're going. It's to transformation of practice, organizational adaptability, and institutional application. And so I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown there. So when I first started, I think a little bit over 3 years ago, Bryan had said to me, we're going to bring in less traditional, and we're going to try to move to more hybrid and agile. And we've been working on hybrid and agile with a little bit of traditional to satisfy PMO requirements. We've been working on that for the last few years. Organizational adaptability, we've really been working on how do we bring our academic team in and how do we get them more involved in the project management process while being cross-functional partners with the business side and the PMO. And then as you see there, the institutional application, this is the one where we spent our most time, and that is how do we bring these practices for academics and how do we meld them with the PMO, which operates almost a traditional, most of the time in a traditional waterfall academic project management process rather. Next slide. So we really decided that for this, not only for this presentation, but we're trying to take a more holistic systems thinking perspective for project management on our academic unit. And you can see here, we've got us in the middle as the administrators, and then we have the students and faculty, and then we have the parents, and of course the policymakers, which can be inside the institution and externally. The systems thinking piece here in practice, we have had to recognize our university as a dynamic kind of living academic adaptive system, very similar to what Peter Senge talks about in terms of the learning organization. We have looked at this idea of sense making to figure out what works best for us versus what do perhaps the scholarly articles and the PMP material talk about. How do we bring that together and to make that work for us? And we spent quite a lot of time working on that to make sure that we're not just bringing in all kinds of jargon, but we're not able to really implement it. And then the last piece here is what we've really been doing over the last 3 years as well, is figuring out where we needed to kind of close the gaps on our project management process and where have we streamlined to improve these three areas. And I'll just share one of the things that we did is we moved all of our processes and documents into Jira. And so we have it now in one system, and that really has facilitated and helped us to streamline our process. So next slide. So we've been talking about this, and these questions we developed probably about a year or so ago, maybe a little longer, and we brought up this idea of how do we integrate project management within systems thinking, and also how do we bring that here into UAGC. And so we've asked two guiding questions, and the first one is, how have we evolved to a disciplined evidence-informed approach to academic project management? And what I mean by that is we now rely on Jira, and we rely on within the Jira has a whole bunch of type of measurements and type of quantitative things that we can look at to make sure that we are using evidence and data-based database material to drive decision making. On the discipline side, we are working on, it's still a work in progress, getting everybody on the same sheet of music, making sure that we're all using the same processes as we move through our projects. And then the second thing we did is when I first got here, we had projects, different people doing different projects in different ways. And so we've decided, and again, we're still working on it, to bring transparency in. And one of the ways we did that, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, is we now have an academic council, and that academic council has different senior leaders within academics on it. And so Bryan and I bring that to the council, and then we have them push that out to their teams. And really, this foundational project practices, that is not, again, bringing jargon in from PMI. That is, how do we get these practices to work for us here in academics? We talk a lot about project discipline, collaboration versus interdepartmental, collaboration rather, via interdepartmental coordination. That is us in academics. Since I'm the only project manager, we have managers that, department managers that manage their own projects. And so how do we get them to collaborate and we move across the different departments in the institution? The second one we've, again, working on, and that's establishing trust, clearly communicating and having visibility. And again, I talked about JIRA. It gives us a way to have visibility to all the projects within academics, and then shared accountability for outcomes. When I first started here, it was projects were kind of all over the place to a degree. And now we have a couple of dashboards that we use, and we demonstrate how we're all being accountable for our projects. And you see, I've a little bit of research here, and it kind of ties into how we interact with the PMO. And it says EPMO, it's just Enterprise Project Management Office. We really just refer to it as the PMO. Next slide.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate
Yep.
it. So I know Joe mentioned when he came on board, we were, kind of talking through the need to implement project management in a space where it's very agile and it can adjust and adapt to kind of changing things happening. I wanted to take a little bit of time here to discuss Vuca. I'm hoping you guys are at least familiar with it, really representing volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And it captures the dynamic and unpredictable environment that's kind of facing higher education today. Institutions really need to find a way to adapt and shift, how they're working through their projects to accommodate shifting student needs, changes in technology. Societal expectations right now are continuing to evolve and really remain relevant as higher education continues to evolve the entire educational landscape. All right. To understand why project management practices within a higher ed have evolved in the way that they have, we need to begin with the concept of Vuca, which really describes the environment where change happens quickly, often without clear patterns. It's volatile and the disruptions occur rapidly, uncertain because the past no longer really predicts the future. Complex due to interdependencies across systems, and really ambiguous because it's hard to distinguish opportunities from threats in a lot of ways. So in short, Vuca really defines the world in which higher education operates, a world where strategy and structure must adapt continuously to those shifting conditions. So rapid technological change, shifting learner expectations, evolving policy frameworks, they really disrupt stability and require systematic adaptation. So as you look at Vuca and kind of those influences that are happening, as things become more volatile and there's additional volatility happening in the industry, you need to have a clear vision and resilience and really try to build flexible systems and distributed decision making to kind of approach and overcome that volatility in higher education. Same with uncertainty. As things become more and more uncertain, having an understanding and foresight, really scenario planning, data analytics can help kind of adapt to the uncertainty in the world. As things become more complex, with complexity, having clarity and additional layers of collaboration, really cross-functional networks and collective intelligence in the marketplace. Having agility, an iterative kind of experimentation and rapid feedback loop, really as you're looking at that continuous improvement cycle, being able to approach the different changes that are happening within the marketplace. So How do we navigate this kind of environment? The key is not to fight volatility or uncertainty, but really to design systems that can absorb and learn from them. For UAGC, this really meant moving away from very rigid linear processes, as Joe was mentioning earlier, and instead building an adaptive kind of culture grounded in transparency, collaboration, and feedback. As you're looking to navigate the Vuca system, successfully, you're going to require leadership teams to anticipate change, leverage cross-functional communication strategies, and promote shared accountability and institutional outcomes. It's about shifting control to connection, creating an environment where information really flows freely, and learning becomes a continuous process rather than that just one-time project that you're working through. Let's skip one. Whoa, scrolling fast here. So I want to talk a little bit about the intersection of VUCA and what Joe mentioned earlier with systems thinking and learning organization theory. It really reframes how institutions approach complexity, innovation, and continuous improvement. One of the most effective responses to a VUCA world is the integration of systems thinking and those learning organization principles. Systems thinking helps us to see the interconnectedness of people, processes, outcomes, and really recognizing that no project exists in isolation. Learning organization, on the other hand, turns those insights into practice by emphasizing things like reflection, collaboration, and shared learning. When we combine these frameworks, institutions develop strategic adaptability. They can analyze challenges holistically, respond to feedback real time, and transform insights into institutional knowledge. This is how academics within UAGC has been able to evolve over time, really since Joe came on board with us, by blending analysis and reflection into an operational model that supports continuous improvement. I think together these frameworks really create a foundation for strategic agility, enabling project management within academics to just continue to evolve over time. This is a slide I'd love to share when we're kind of talking through VUCA. These are images that really illustrate kind of the VUCA landscape within higher education right now. We're experiencing shifting demographics and a decline in traditional student populations. Emerging technologies, especially generative AI, are kind of reshaping how we approach curriculum design, as well as the marketplace. Institutions face uncertain funding models, increased demand for really short-term workforce-aligned credentialing, and a rising concern around student mental health and well-being. At the same time, we're navigating a lot of political and policy pressures kind of related to DEI and where it fits in higher education, changing accreditation standards, cybersecurity threats, and even discussions really about the future of the Department of Education as a whole. These complexities require project management approaches that are responsive, again, data informed, and deeply collaborative, qualities that we've kind of worked collectively to build into our academic project management process. I'm going to pass it back over to Joe here real quickly to kind of dive a little bit deeper into this.
Yep. So thanks, Bryan. So one of the things that I want to share before we jump forward and relating to VUCA, we have started to bring in AI. So we started to bring in Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, and a couple of others, and to bring them in to figure out where in the project management process they can help us, where they can kind of think a little bit further out than we're thinking, but more so where we can do exactly what you have here. How can we bring our planning, our predictability, our sequencing, how can we put that in a generative AI model and have it give us, I won't say the competitive edge, but to help us continue to improve our process. And so one of the things, again, I'll go back to when I first started, these 3 bullet points were things that Bryan had said, we really can't bring these in because what'll happen here is it almost won't be heard by the team, if you will. So while we have to do some of this stuff at times just to support the PMO, these traditional project management practices are not our first thought. So we don't plan our projects all the way through and never change them. We don't go with that predictability piece and never change it back. And we don't keep some of our projects, but the majority of our projects, we don't have a sequence that we can't break. Next slide, Brian. So this is a little bit more where we are, right? So we are moving towards, I would say, agile and hybrid flexibility. A lot of our projects will kind of start out as one thing, and then they'll morph through before we even move them through our process as something completely different, or they will start out as something, and as the project is moving along, they will completely change. And I've got some examples there. We do a lessons learned. We do a lessons learned for the reason of bringing learning not only to our process, to the project management process rather, but across entire academics. And it's interesting. I just did a presentation with Stephanie Kilby on experimentation. I went to Bryan and said, hey, could we take a project and completely run it hybrid and agile? And it had to do with student success. You know, I was going to do it anyways, but Bryan said, sure, go ahead and do it. And so the results from that uh, doing that were amazing. And we got buy-in cross-functionally from leaders across the organization that were on this team because it was a fresh approach to what we do here at how we do projects here at UAGC. Next slide, Brian. So again, we talk in PMI terms that agile is a mindset, right? And so for us, we came up with 4 core attributes: proactive, productive, flexible, and optimistic. And I want to talk about the last one. When I say optimistic, it is not that we are running around saying, everything is sweetness and lights, but rather it is optimistic around what we put in place will work, right? We will work together. We will morph it into how it works for us. So proactive and flexible helps us to be more productive. And in terms of productivity, it's not like this is not counting widgets. It's productivity around how can we as a team, our days are full, right? Our days are full from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And so how do we get more productive, and how do we work with our projects where it's maximum impact, it's alignment with the organization, and it doesn't add as much stress more stress to our days as we already have. And then the proactive piece, I'll talk about that. So one of the things that Bryan and I work on is Bryan will now go out and he'll look at, or he's always been, but we've had more of an opportunity now to go out and say, hey, here's some projects coming up. Let's pull those in right away. Let's pull those in before they are given to us. Let's pull those in and start having a discussion about what this particular project would look like. And that gives us the ability to go back and say, when that project comes due, to say, hey, look, here's what we've done already, and here's kind of where we think this might go. So it has absolutely helped us in terms of how we communicate our strategy across the organization. Next slide. So this is where we're going to talk about the connection between us and the PMO. So I want to say it's probably maybe a year and a half ago, Bryan, maybe a little bit longer, that the institution put together a PMO, a project management office. And that office really has done a great job in standardizing a lot of the processes, standardizing a lot of the documents, a lot of the metrics, and all kinds of things that we use. And they came up with a 3-tiered project system. And that 3-tiered system allows us on the academic side to really talk about some projects that maybe in the past we just said they're all important. We now can say, hey, how important is this one in terms of strategy, in terms of the department, in terms of the organization? And I'll give you a great example. We have so much going on right now that we have really taken a look at our projects. And some of them we just said those projects can stay on hold. Nothing bad will happen, because it gives us more flexibility to work on projects that really, as Bryan had said, we have a lot going on right now. So we need to focus on we have projects that are 90 to 120 days right now, and there's 6 or 7 of them, and they are the main projects we need to do right now to help the organization move forward. Next slide. So here's kind of, I will talk through how this started, and I'm really, this slide really, really happy about it. So the first project we did was a live learning project, and you can see there in the 2022-23 box there, we started out with Microsoft Project. We started out with a little bit in Excel, and this particular project was to figure out how we could actually do a project, right? So with baselines, it was very structured. It was run in mostly a traditional approach. However, by us using Microsoft Project and seeing how that could work for us, that started to give us an idea of, hey, is this the best tool? And if it's not, where can we move? Once the PMO was launched, Bryan and I had said, hey, you know what? we're going to get a little bit ahead of it, and we're going to start moving everything into Jira. And it was really something that helped us, because once we moved it into Jira, we then created an academic project prioritization board, which shows all of our projects, and we have some scoring around them. We have some weighting around them, so that we know every 2 weeks when we update our board where we stand with the entire portfolio for all the academics. And Bryan and I started that together, and now we have morphed it to where I'm taking that over, and really having Bryan move and work with the academic council and work with the PMO to start to figure out where we can continue to streamline. And that leads me into the little last box here. Two things going on. We established an academic council, like I said. We are still continuing to put some kind of processes around that, and how does that council work? We did do a couple of significant projects where the council had some input, and they were supportive of them. We ran those as hybrid, and we really hit a home run on them, and it demonstrated how important it is for us to, as Bryan said, be flexible, be rigid where we have to in terms of the traditional approach, but be open to flexibility, hybrid, and the things we've shown here in the last couple of slides. So really excited that we've gone from really that process that when we just started this to now where we are. And if you could put a box here with 2026 and 2027, I would say the generative AI and the further developing of a truly agile approach is probably on the frontier, on the horizon rather. Anything to add to that, Bryan?
No, I think you really kind of covered everything. It's been a great transition. I think we're evolving and continuing to evolve. I think we're taking feedback, both positive and negative, on approaches from work groups, project work groups that we're working with, just to try to put us in the best position possible as an academic unit to continue to support. Because we know there's a lot of change coming and down the pipeline for us. And just being in the best position we can to support all that work is kind of the goal.
Yeah, I'll share one more thing. So we don't know necessarily yet where, on the academic side, where we may have a project that combines perhaps if there's a joint initiative between us and the University of Arizona. We don't know that yet. However, what we would know is that we would be in a good place to support that project, to support that cross-functional work together, because we already have all of this established. So next slide. Or is it? All right, so conclusion and future research, you can see here, and I should have moved it up to the top, the AI augmented PM. One of the things as I took, and it says here, move to the top, and I didn't do it, but one of the things that as I told you, I took a prep course on the PMP exam, and our instructor had said probably within the next 3 to 5, maybe 7 years, 50 to 60% of a project manager's job and or perhaps a project management process is going to involve, or is going to augment AI, Copilot, ChatGPT, and so on. So for us, that is the biggest thing where we are going, is to figure out, how do we manage AI, and two, how do we bring it into the project management process where we don't overwhelm everyone, and or we don't rely too much on AI where we lose kind of all the stuff we have built to this point. So it's going to be a slippery slope, some trial and error. I can tell you right now, I use it to take notes during my meetings. I've used it a couple times for lessons learned. We haven't really used it for planning a project yet, but I think that will be down the road. We'll start testing and seeing how AI will support us in that type of stuff. And one of the things Bryan has shared is, if we can do it with AI quicker and more efficient, and then we can kind of tailor it to something we're doing, absolutely do that. Because as I said, I am the only project manager in our department, and so we have everyone else, department heads and division leaders working with me to kind of have this cohesive project group where you have one project manager and then you have other folks acting in that project management role. I think that's it. Or next slide. I think that's it. Oh, so lessons learned. So a couple things. We have systems thinking is working for us. It's really helping us to adapt, and it's really helping us to focus on continuous improvement. We are aligning the academic options with academic operations really with the constraints and the requirements from the business side. As Bryan said before, we are really pushing the agile practices so we can continue to collaborate with our, not only with ourselves, but with other areas across the institution. And this one is really important. We on the academic side we're working on being more responsive to, as Bryan said, the needs of the business. So if something happens in the next few months with Department of Higher Education and it shifts something around the student experience, we want to be ready to pivot to that and jump into a project right away instead of having to completely overhaul and redo our process. The governance piece, we have a governance process for the entire institution. And again, we have a governance process for us with the academic council. We're continuing to mature our side of the house with the academic council governance. And as we do, that's going to help us to continue or help us better work with the governance on the PMO. And then the hybrid, we've talked about it. It's going to help us be more of a learning organization. One of the things we're going to try to do is get a lessons learned repository where we can start putting all of our projects together, have this time for reflection, have increased collaboration, and then start to really look at strategic challenges coming up. Where are the wins that we've been getting? And then again, the next steps, how do we bring in tools like AI and other tools? And again, as PMI continues to change, I'm trying to bring that stuff into the team, but tailor it to us so that it's not too much theory, if you will. Next slide. I think that's it. No.
Actually, if I can just quickly
Sure.
touch base, I think what Joe's kind of done a really good job of explaining here is really, the evolution from a traditional project management approach to more of a hybrid approach. It's not really just about efficiency. It's about building the capacity to learn and adapt. I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of continue to refining our ability, manage complexity, and kind of handling some of that uncertainty that happens. And that's done through that learning and collaboration, really intentional design on how we're approaching our project management space. I think Joe's done a fantastic job of kind of trial and error and working with the other project managers across the institution to create systems and processes that kind of create some uniformity between our departments and allow us to coexist as not only a part of the PMO office, but within an academic space doing project management in a way that I think is necessary for the future of academics here at UAGC. So
I'll wrap it up with one sentence. So we're not looking to build out the project management department per se. In other words, we're not looking to bring on more project managers. Rather, what we're doing is try to help our leaders become better project managers themselves so that when they do projects, they're working with that project management mindset. So that's all I got. Thank you guys all for attending and listening to our very boring presentation on project
on project
management.
management.
Yeah.
It's never boring to me.
Well, yeah.
And we're happy to answer
Question-
questions if anybody's got
Questions?
any.
Yeah. Anyone has questions?
Brian, Joe,
So
there is one in the chat from Joanna.
Sure.
Says, if you are working quick, agile sprints and realize that an SME or voice is missing, how do you bring them in and bring them up to speed to now slow the sprint, but also not make the new person feel behind?
Man, that is awesome. I'll take that one. So at the end of every sprint, you do what's called a retrospective. And during the retrospective, the team will come out and say what's worked, what's missing, and where do we go. And to your point, Joanna, if we got into that situation and we realize the SME is missing, we can then pivot to the next sprint and perhaps add an additional sprint in there to get that person caught up, or the scrum master or the project manager can kind of meet with that person in a one-on-one scenario and catch them up to the best of our ability. So Agile allows you to do that in the retrospective. Oh. Elizabeth,
Did
did
that
you have
answer
a
your
question?
question, Joanna?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to ask first.
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome.
Elizabeth, do you have a
just
question?
curious
There's-
why you switched from Microsoft Project to Jira.
Great question. So it was interesting. Bryan and I were sitting in a meeting one day, and one of the technology leaders had said, we have Jira, and we have all these things in Jira. And Jira at that time had moved more from an IT only kind of process to more, they've made some changes where it's a little more business like. We have all this stuff, we have all this. We were using it but sort of not. And so Brian and I said, you know what, this is coming. So let's move all of our stuff into Jira so that when the organization makes that shift, we're not scrambling. So it really was an organizational decision. But for us, like I said, we have this project prioritization board that helps us to be more transparent across the entire academic unit.
I think
Okay,
it
And I
allowed
could,
for
yeah,
a
and
lot of, go ahead,
yeah,
Bill.
I couldn't do that with project. There was no way we could do that with project because everybody had to have a license or this or
oh, yeah,
that.
I understand,
Yeah,
yeah.
Jira is a lot easier because we have those licenses already. I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
It just allowed for a lot of, I think, transparency across the institution to departments, and we're still the PMO itself is still slowly making its way to really living within the Jira space in full. And Joe's been, it took him a good amount of time, but got all of our projects and all of our approaches into Jira, which allowed us to share relatively quickly and easily with the PMO, kind of where we're at. It allowed our not only academic administration, but also the executive leadership team to have visibility to our projects, where they're at, potential hurdles that we're seeing, as well as timelines. So I think it's done a really good job of kind of allowing for that additional layer of transparency, which I think works really, really well for an institution that project never did.
So I'll give you
So,
one more, Liz. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll give you one more to add in. We have about 900 courses right now that are going through the accessibility updates, and we have until I believe it's March or April something 2026. Prior to that, they did that with spreadsheets, massive spreadsheets, macros, all kinds of stuff. We took one spreadsheet, loaded all those courses into Jira, put them into sprints, and we are rolling. We are almost halfway done. We are on track to finish this project a few months, maybe a month or so, maybe a few weeks ahead. If we were doing that in Excel, it would be a slog. So to Brian's
yeah,
point, it's helping us. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to
so
cut you off.
the only other thing I wanted to mention to you was that I did the PMI training. It was very extensive for AI. They have, lots and lots of different training modules and videos. And one of the things that they discussed about AI and project management organizations is the fact that you have to have a good repository. So, that you have to have a very good repository of data because it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So
Mhm.
as you're collecting and standardizing the information, the historical data, the lessons learned, it's really, really key that if you want an AI model to be able to extract and plan for you, like some of the examples they provided was an AI model literally building the project plan, the project schedule, doing the estimating of resources and time
Yep.
and money. It was amazing. And it did what normally would take me, let's say 8 hours. It did it in like minutes. So it's a very useful tool. And if you're collecting this in Jira and you're getting exact data and you're actually updating like what the estimated time versus what the actual time was for something to take, that can be very useful. And I can see where you could easily transition to using AI for project planning and execution.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I'll
Sorry
say,
about the
Elizabeth,
dog.
no, that's okay. That's where we want to move to our lessons learned repositories. That's where we want to start bringing all that in, kind of putting it in buckets, sorting through it. That will probably take us quite a while, and that's okay. So I use AI again for less sophisticated things like that, but it does help us in terms of um, when we put our project into the system, it does help us to refine the way they go in so that we're communicating the message the way we want it to. And Joanna, Shauna, can you read Joanna's question? I saw half of it.
Yeah. What are the best tips for planning? Sorry about that. What are the best tips for planning you have for teams who don't need a PM for a small project, but want to use the methodology for changes?
Man, that's awesome. So we have a project planning template. We also will pull up, say for example, even if you're not putting a ticket into Jira, they have a really good in Jira, they have a really good ticketing system where you can walk through all the different pieces of what you need for that project. But if I can, Joanna, I will get you, let's connect up after TLC. I will get you the project planning template that we have, and we can even customize it for your department if you want, but it's something that would be invaluable for us, for you.
And I would just say, if you have any questions, again, Joe, please reach out to me. I'm an adjunct, associate professor, and I'm here. It's what I do, so.
Oh, I will. We'll become best friends soon because I'll be looking to take the PMP in the spring. So, anyways,
Sure, so just reach out to me. Yeah, no problem.
we'll do. Thank you all from Bryan and I. Thank you all very much for coming in and listening and participating. We actually had 16 people at one point, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Bryan and Joe, and thank you to our audience for your participation in today's session. Please use the survey linked in the chat to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on this presentation. Thank you all.